Glad to have you here. I'd like to welcome remote participants. We have remote participants who have access to the webcast, the live transcript, downloadable meeting materials, and a chat room. We have a remote monitor who will monitor for questions from the remote room and come up and ask them. Ask everyone, please speak so that everyone can hear you. Speak clearly. Identify yourself when you're at the microphone. Please comply with the courtesies in your discussion guide. So, Paul Anderson, who's ARIN's Vice Chair and Treasurer, will be moderating. I'm the President and CEO, and John Sweeting, the AC Chair, will be helping the discussion of the policies. Let me now turn it over to John to do the AC report. Yeah.
All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this public policy consultation. A couple of things I want to point out real quick is there's four, as John said, there's four recommended drafts that the advisory council has voted forward for adoption, and the next step is to send it to last call, and we really want good input on those four as we're planning to take some final action, sending that to last call. And there's a couple of the draft policies that we're looking to abandon, and the shepherds that come up and do the presentation will be very clear on what the intent is on those policies, and what we're looking for there is like, is there any reason why we should not abandon those? All right, John.
Right out. Use the arrow key. That works too.
It wasn't working. So the policy development process charges the member-elected ARIN Advisory Council as the primary facilitators of the process. Today, besides myself from the Advisory Council, we have Dan Alexander, the Vice Chair, Kevin Bloomberg, primary shepherd on a few of the proposals, Andrew Dull, another shepherd, David Farmer, Scott Librand, John Springer, and myself. Number of policy discussions today. We're going to have, like I said, we're going to have four recommended draft policies that we want to hear your thoughts on, specifically whether there's any reasons not to move them forward in the process towards adoption, and also the 10 draft policies, which there's a few that most of them will continue working, getting them ready for Baltimore, but there's a couple that we feel we would like to abandon and stop work on. After today's meeting, if you want to continue discussion on these or any other policy proposals, we have a room up on the third floor where you'd be welcome to come up and sit with us and work on some policies, or just seek myself or any one of the AC members out and let us know what's on your mind, what we can help you with. The only other thing I'd like to say is that we have very limited time on each and every one of these, so if you could get up, speak your piece when you're ready, and then let the other people get up and do theirs, and we can move along and cover all of this in this meeting. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. So let's move right into the policies. First policy we have to discuss is recommended draft policy. Let's see, here we go. ARIN 2013-8, subsequent allocations for multiple discrete networks. And if, Andrew, you want to come up? Okay, I'll do the introduction and then I'll turn it over to Andrew to present. The origin of this policy proposal was November 2013. The Shepherds, Kathy Aronson, Owen DeLong, Rob Seastrom. It was accepted in November. It was presented at NANOG 60. It was reverted to draft and presented at ARIN 33. It was revised, and the AC made recommendation again in May, so this is recommended to be adopted. It's in your guide. The proposal adds missing criteria to NRPM 4.5 multiple discrete networks and NRPM 6.11 IPv6 multiple discrete networks to assist staff in the community in determining the allocation sizes for new sites in existing MDN customers. The revised text removed the requirement to obtain connectivity at the new site and replaced with the requirement the organization has shown evidence of deployment of the new discrete site. If implemented, ARIN will require hard evidence such as connectivity contracts, proof of deployment at the new site, etc. But it wouldn't be specifically having to be a connectivity contract. It could be evidence of purchase, it could be an engineering plan. So there's more flexibility in the defined language, but it would need to be concrete evidence of deployment. Does not create legal concerns, and presentation by the AC. Let's see if I have yours. See the next slide? Yes, he is. Oh, that's so convenient. Thank you, Arna. Go ahead, Andrew.
Okay, this policy basically comes from the policy experience report last year, and tried to fix an issue that the staff identified with the existing policy, and we are basically implementing a slight variation on what the staff's current policy or current practice actually is. So the way we are fixing this is we're adding a little new section that basically allows ARIN to give a new site a minimum allocation or a immediate need request per site. This has been fairly uncontroversial with the exception of the has shown evidence of deployment, which we believe that text now actually mirrors what we think the community wants for this policy. This just is talking about where the origins of this policy are and the original discussion about it. And at this point, we'd like to hear from the community of any issues with the current language as the policy is written. As I stated earlier, I believe we've fixed the issues that the community has raised out before, and this policy, we believe, is now ready to go to last call. So any comments from people today?
So this is your moment that you can come up and tell us whether you just support or don't support this proposal moving to the next stage, or any feedback you have on the text. I ask you not all to rush at once, fire code violations and all that.
Where's Lee Howard when you need him?
Yes, where is Lee Howard when you need him? Again, though, as you all make your way to the microphone, please, I'll remind you to state your name and your organization prior to speaking as well. But if there's no feedback, then it makes the AC.
Well, no comments means we're going to move forward with putting it to last call.
As the chair, if you did not hear the chair, if there's no comments, he believes that the AC will move it to the last call. So. Yes, it saves time, makes time for other things.
Any remote participants?
Not so far, no.
Anyone typing? They do need a moment or two. There's the webcast delay, and well, we'll give going once, going twice, 3 times. We'll close the microphone, just giving a moment for remote participant, but seeing none.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you for your feedback on this.
Yep. Okay, very good. So next up, we have driving this. We have recommended draft policy, ARIN 2014-5, remove 7.2 lame delegations. This is also a recommended policy, meaning it could be adopted after this meeting. Yeah, not time machine. Let's try that. There we go. Okay. So this originated in January this year. Rob Seastrom is the shepherd. It was presented at NANOG 60. The AC made it recommended in April. It's in your guide. The proposal would remove NRPM section 7.2 because it's out of scope for ARIN and because ARIN has never effectively implemented it. Staff would not change our current operational practice. When ARIN switched from per zone DNS management, we ran into the major issues with lame delegation, and we suspended it. The issues include a lack of clear definition on what a lame server was and the potential of removing a misconfigured but working reverse server. It does not create legal concerns. And now I'm going to have the John Springer come up and do the AC presentation, which... No presentation. Oh, very good.
He just goes on his gut.
Go, John.
So when this was presented in Atlanta and Chicago, the primary shepherd, Rob Seastrom, made a point of saying that it was going to be the shortest presentation that ever occurred in the history of ARIN. So the proposal is to remove section 7.2, and I now call for any feedback or commentary. If we receive none, we'll probably be moving this to last call.
On a historical note, this was my first ever policy that I shepherded on the AC, so.
Put it in.
To put it in, so. Good to see that you're removing all existence of my tenure. Would anybody like to come up and comment on whether they support or do not support or moving this policy to next stage? Center microphone.
Kevin Bloomberg, The Wire, and AC. Just a clarification from John. How many years has it been since this policy has not been in effect? As in, how many years has it been since it?
I'm gonna look at
We're
Mark.
going to hand
I'm
that
gonna
over
say
to Mr. Kern.
6.5 at this point, I believe. At least 5. I think we're up to 6.5 by now. Because it was at the point in time when we had to implement the per zone management that you all use now.
Thank you. I'm in support of this proposal.
Thank you, Kevin. You're in support. Thank you, John, for that feedback. Center microphone again.
Joe Provo, Google, strong support.
Thank
That's
you very
it.
much. Any other comments? People that would like to, give reasons why they do not think it should advance? Again, the AC looking to potentially advance this to last call. Going once, twice, 3 times sold, except for remote participant, because we give them a little bit extra time because they've got to type. I'm looking at you. No. So seeing no feedback, further feedback, I think we can, unless you specifically want to poll, I think we can.
Yeah, we're good.
We're good. Thank you very much for that valuable input to the AC.
If we have lots of time, we can use it as a longer coffee break because coffee is good. So let's see. Next up is recommended draft policy 2014-12, anti-hijack policy. Very good. Okay. So it was proposed this year in February. Dave Farmer and Kathy Aronson are the shepherds. Was accepted as a draft policy in March. Was presented at ARIN 33 in Chicago. The AC made it recommended in May. It's online in your guide. The policy would clarify expectations for experimental allocations by requiring that all experimental allocations come from ARIN's internet resource space, do not overlap existing registrations, and not be private or otherwise unroutable space, and be registered in WHOIS with a designation indicating the registration is experimental with a comment indicating the end date of the experiment. Staff, this policy could be implemented as written. Another comment, this policy is probably a good thing because we did something else recently with a very large non-documented experimental allocation as part of testing blocks, and this would make sure that you all understand how we do testing and that we do it in a rigorous manner, and it's goodness. Okay. Legal assessment, no particular legal issues. Presentation by the AC, come on up.
Hello. This is not going to be the shortest presentation for ARIN ever, but that's not a problem. Okay, problem statement. ARIN shouldn't let people hijack addresses, which is kind of what happened. And at least by some people's definition, I'm not sure I agree with that definition, but that's okay. And so we're going to put a little more detail into the guidelines. So we have a recommended policy statement. This is what's in the guide. Modify section 11.7 with a new name, calling it guidelines. And then put in modify one sentence and then add a sentence about how the allocation should be documented and who is. So this is the recommended policy text. All of the text in black is previous text from the previous policy, and the text in blue is the text being added and inserted. There's been some recent discussion. There's about the third sentence, which is the original text, and it's pretty awkward, and so we're going to propose some editorial changes as we go into last call. These are listed here. They've been on PPML for a little while. And then make a quick change to the policy statement, basically saying, yep, we're going to modify that third sentence to clarify the original policy intent. And then this is the overall policy text. You'll notice that there's a number of changes in the third sentence there. Discussion. Anybody object to us incorporating, the AC incorporating the editorial changes based on the PPML feedback prior to last call? Thank you.
Why don't we go back so that we at least are working with the proposed text? And
Yep.
So, I'd ask at this time if people have either feedback on the editorial changes or feedback on the proposal to approach the mic forthwith. Center microphone.
Bill Manning, and I read through that text and it talks to me silently that this is IPv4 specific or IPv4 tuned, because there are other experimental spaces defined by the IETF which don't meet these criteria. The ULA spaces, for example.
So are you proposing there just needs to be clarifications? Are you not supportive? Are you supportive?
When other organizations such as the IETF are able to designate usefulness of parts of the address space that don't fall within the ARIN policy guidelines, this seems a little extreme.
Okay, could you just hang on? Don't move.
I could,
Follow-
but
follow.
This is one small part of the experimental policy text talking about how ARIN would allocate experimental. This whole section is only about allocations made by ARIN.
no, it doesn't say that.
This doesn't say that. Other parts of the text. This is one subsection.
Okay, it says come from the global internet resource space.
Just hang on. I'd like John to respond.
So this goes into section 11, which reads experimental internet resource allocations. ARIN will, in the first sentence says, ARIN will allocate numbering resources to entities requiring temporary numbering resources for a fixed period of time under the terms of a recognized experimental activity. So in the context of that first sentence and the whole section 11, I think it's clear this is ARIN's experimental policy for temporary allocation of general purpose address space, not IETF specialized or technical. But you should go pull NRPM and look at the first two sentences and see if that provides enough context. If not, we should wordsmith it.
Okay, thank you.
Would you mind going and having a peek and let it come back and let us know if that clarifies it for you? Or
About 6 months, yeah.
sure, thanks. Next speaker.
Mike Joseph, Google. I strongly support this policy. Moreover, I agree with the assessment that this would apply only to ARIN allocations, and I disagree with the assessment that this would be IPv4 centric. In fact, this policy was originated specifically because of an IPv6 prefix hijacking, and it is in fact IPv6 that was envisioned when this policy was crafted, as the person crafting it was sitting next to me.
Supportive, yes.
Strongly support.
Thank you. Next speaker? Speaking, maybe you need a moment to think? Well, maybe just check on the remote while where did my remote? Oh, he's running away? No remote? Center microphone.
Rüdiger Volk, Deutsche Telekom. Well, okay, just an outsider's remark. Looking at the statements, it looks kind of awkward that there is the remark that, well, okay, research organizations should not be allowed to hijack. I wonder what other organizations might be.
Are you though, is that just a comment, or are you supportive, or?
Well, okay. My understanding of the context of the proposal is, yes, fix what you have. Looking at the text and the particular language explaining the thing comes with strange questions.
Okay, thank you. Other people that would like to comment? Other follow-up? Other remote? What would you like, sir? Is that good point? So, given that we've had some vibrant discussion here, I'd like to ask that we do a poll, because it's always good to get a little bit of audience participation. First, are pollsters ready? Just give up. So we will ask the question, first I will ask for those who are in favor of this policy moving forward in the process, and those who are opposed, just so you're clear. So once I get the green light from our pollster, I will ask you, those who are in favor of this proposal, including the editorial change moving forward, please raise your hand as high as you can and leave it there until I ask you to lower it. I'd ask remote participants to indicate their support or non-support at this time as well. Preferably just hands up, no duck signs or anything like that, as I see in some of the audience. Are we good? You may lower your hands. Thank you. Those that are opposed to this policy moving forward in the policy process, please raise your hand nice and high. Louis, can you raise your hand for a second just so I can make sure? No, just a test sample. All right. Yes. Yes. Louis, is your hat voting? Yes. All right. All right. Just we'll just wait a moment for the tabulation to occur. Yes. I'd remind that the next step will be the last call phase. Do a little dance while we wait. Yes, I do dance, but this stage looks like it could collapse. Oh, the envelope, please. So on the matter of 2014-12, on the question of moving it forward, those in favor, 19. Those opposed, 2. No? Oh, okay, well, it's written, okay. 21 in favor, 0 against. My apologies, I misread the paper. 44 people are in the room or online. Again, just to clarify, 21 in favor, 0 against, 44 in the room. This input will be passed to the AC for their consideration.
Thank you, David.
Okay, moving right ahead. Let's see. Next policy up is recommended draft policy ARIN 2014-13. Reduce all minimum allocation assignment units to /24. Okay. And history of this was proposed in April 2014. Kevin Bloomberg and Bill Dart are the shepherds. The AC accepted it as a draft policy in May. They made it a recommended policy in May. It is online in your discussion guide. Staff understanding, the policy would reduce the minimum allocation assignment size to /24 for all networks, whether end user or ISP and whether single or multi-homed. Additionally, it would eliminate the existing multi-home policies. Staff comments. Okay, so it's not clear in the proposal what criteria would be used to determine an allocation size other than /24. Current criteria is very clear about what's used to qualify for 22, 21, and 20. And when you strike all that, it's not quite clear how we do the initial size. Staff uses current criteria defined in 4221 in conjunction with a slow start to establish the de facto 20 maximum allocation size for new ISPs. So an ISP who comes in who is qualifying for the first time, because a slow start will not get larger than a /20. Staff recommends that a maximum initial size of /20 be noted and codify the existing practice, and the section be titled minimum and maximum allocation. The proposal would benefit smaller ISPs who are unable to qualify currently under IPv4 policies. In particular, would be unable to qualify for 8.2, 8.3, and 8.4 transfers in a post-depletion world. Note this is a point that was raised during the policy experience report in Chicago. ARIN would likely have many discontiguous /24s as we near depletion and fewer larger blocks. This block would actually allow more organizations to use those smaller prefixes and continue the efficient use of the pool. No legal assessments. Proposal does not appear to pose any significant legal risk. And now I will turn it over to Kevin Bloomberg to do the AC presentation.
Good morning, everybody. So, the thrust of this is we wanted to the author and wanted to basically look at the entire NRPM and lower everything down to a /24, whether you're single-homed, multi-homed, end user, ISP, simplify the entire process. The removal of the multi-homing section was effectively because of duplication. Every section, other than the amount of space, whether it be your minimum assignment sizes or all of the things were duplicated between the two, so the sections got combined at that point because there was no difference now that everything was /24. The key parts of this policy was to not change slow start. The slow start section is unchanged completely in this proposal. Efficient utilization is completely unchanged in this proposal. Those aspects are the same and will continue to be the same. It was to remove out and lower everything to /24, and that was the main aspect to it. We've gone through the staff comments and have a little bit of a disagreement in some respects and a friendly disagreement. The first is in relation to what size to give out. In the staff comments, one of the concerns was that /24 was really now it, and there was no really way to, there was no description of a way to do more than that. Whereas in the text, it does actually say and larger. So ISPs are generally allocated /24s and larger, which does give staff the flexibility of assigning larger space when required based on your needs through slow start and your utilization. The discussion in regards to, and this was the most, a little complicated, but in regards to maximum was, historically in the NRPM, and I'll bring up the section here. Just a second. Here we go. In the multi-home section, we had some specific descriptions, examples of you have this amount of space, you can get this amount of space. And staff had, in the past, and please correct me if I'm wrong, used this as the maximum for what an organization should get. So the maximum that was given as an example was a /20. That was the maximum that you could get on your initial allocation. This does take that out, and what it allows people to do, or organizations to do, is to come in and say, I'm actually using a /19. I need to show that I'm efficiently utilizing it. I need an 18. In the past, that wouldn't have been allowed based on this text, and with this revision, it really allows and simplifies both a little bit in the free pool scenario, but more importantly, in the transfer market, it just simplifies what you need based on the amount of time that you are, whether it be 3-month or 24-month, etc. So I'm just going to bring up the questions I have for you. Boom, boom. The first question was, obviously, do you support this as written? There's a lot of changes. It's in your guide, and I would appreciate if you do have any feedback in that. We've got a lot of feedback from the community, we've got a lot of feedback from the community on the PPML already. Do any of the changes that we've outlined create issues that we're not aware of? Because you're obviously part of the community. This is a community, and we miss stuff. Do you see anything that we've missed on these changes? Should we put in maximum allocation or leave it based on slow start and efficient utilization, not having a maximum set? And should that text be reinserted? Thank you.
Thank you. So we ask all the eagle eyes to approach the microphone right after John has a quick interlude here.
I'd like to comment on the staff comments and the maximum maximum size feature. It's not it's up to the community what they want here. For the time between now and depletion of the ARIN free pool, a maximum might be useful if you are concerned about the rate of depletion of the free pool. After that point, it's questionable whether it serves a need. But in the intervening time, removing a maximum makes things simpler, and that's a benefit. Leaving a maximum in eliminates the possibility of a party that has an ISP assigned block. And there are ISPs over the last 15 years who have signed, in some cases, very large blocks to their downstream ISPs. So you might have parties out there who have 16s, 17s, and 18s that are effectively from their upstream ISP. They could now immediately come in where they could not before. They'd only get a /20. They could come in and get a 16 or a 17 or an 18 or a 19. Is that a problem? I don't know. It's a feature, and that's really the trade-off. The question is, in the point of time while you have this free pool, is removing that /20 cap a necessary thing or not? Certainly, post-depletion, it probably doesn't matter at all. So I just want to clarify that. It's not a problem either way. It's just how you want to manage the resources.
Thank you, John.
Bill Manning again. To the extent that this simplifies the policy manual, I support this. To the extent that it clutters the policy manual, I am not in favor. And in cluttering the policy manual, you are creating, for want of a better term, interim IPv4 policy to deal with a specific case. This sort of end space run out, and how much you can get, how much you can't get. I would almost rather see, and this is not new, that a minimum allocation regardless of address family would be a /32, and people who are concerned about routing would be concerned about routing and whether or not they would be willing to accept anything smaller than a 24 or a 27 or whatever into the routing system. But that's not something that ARIN in policy should be concerned about. ARIN should be concerned about efficient allocation of the address pool that has been given, regardless of address family. So I would like to actually see this recast being address family agnostic.
So not supportive, and your desire would be to have it recast?
I support it
make
to the
supportive.
extent that it simplifies the policy manual. I don't support it from the extent that it is very address family specific and very temporally specific. In 5 years, I don't think this is going to be important.
Just a quick follow-up from the, don't, you like to, Bill, I can't run away so quickly.
Because Scott is...
Yes, but Mr. Bloomberg,
No,
Kevin
it's
would
all-
like,
no,
oh,
I'm just-
okay, I thought then you're allowed to run away. Next speaker.
Scott Librand, ARIN AC. So a couple of responses to Bill's comment. The first is Bill might be interested in the discussion of ARIN 2014-3, I believe it is.
Coming up soon.
Which removes the 8.2 and 8.3 minimum IPv4 block size requirements. So that would mean that in a post-exhaustion world, the minimum IPv4 transfer size would be A/32. The second, so
Doesn't jive with this.
it's a separate proposal and it's less likely to pass. So there's two things.
Okay, all right, let's
There's
get
two
to
things
that
going on here, and
proposal
I
when we
think they
get
need to be
that
discussed
proposal.
separately. So my point with that is that discussion, I believe, belongs in the later discussion. The other point I would make is that we have two different sections of the policy manual, Section 4 and Section 6. They deal with two different address families. The effort here is specific to the Section 4, which deals with IPv4, and I believe this is a simplification and will make things a lot less complicated, both now and after run out. So to the first half of your comments, I believe this does address the simplification and doesn't, as it's currently drafted, make things any more complex.
Yeah, to clarify, the proposal, or mentioned earlier, deals with Section 8, which solely deals with transfers. But are you supportive or not supportive? You are supportive? Two thumbs up, let the record show. Next speaker, please.
Mike Joseph, Google. I have some concerns about the aspects of the policy which make unclear or potentially in this case, remove the maximum allocation sizes, but not just because it potentially allows an unlimited maximum initial block, but also because it's my read of the policy, and perhaps staff can clarify, it is not clear if allowing their organizations to get initial 24s would mean organizations can only get initial 24s.
So at present, the criteria that we use to establish an organization obtaining a block size of 22, 21, or 20 is laid out in the sections that are being excised in this proposal, okay? And, but it's clear that the intent of this is to allow us assigning an allocation size based on their actual documented need, but it's hard to see how that intersects with slow start because the whole section is covered by slow start, which means we give parties an initial block size and allow them to show that they've used it before we give them the next block. So there's nothing to prevent under this policy us from allocating a block larger than 24 if we see that a party coming to us has need right now for something larger than 24. So we could give out 23s, 22s, 21s from the free pool, 20, 19, and that's the question about if someone shows up who has an ISP, you know, they have provider assigned space of /16 and they want to get out of it while they can, this would say we would give them their /16 so they could renumber out of it. And so, yes, 24 does not become the default. This becomes very much a judgment for an initial allocation.
Support, not support, further comment?
As long as we are not tying our hands to only being able to get 24s going forward, then I have no objection.
Thank you very much. I'd approach, again, encourage, this is a recommended draft policy, and there's a lot in here, so the AC is very much looking for your input if they have found the right text regarding the problem statement that's been defined, so I'd urge you to come up and give your feedback. Next speaker, please.
John Van Oppen, Wave Broadband Spectrum Networks. The minimum allocation, or the maximum allocation size thing is a big thing for me. I think we're basically dragging out our V4 runout for no reason. If people need addresses now while we have them, we should be using them up and we should be allocating them how we did. I'm definitely in favor of this because I can tell you, like at least from our perspective, the current policy encourages us to take every one of our LLCs that has users all over the West Coast and have every one of them apply for /20s, which is frankly just stupid. And we as an end user ISP, we're not going to stop adding cable modem users to the network. We know this. I mean, this is not likely. We're going to let them sign up, and we're going to get the IPs to do it, whether we have to buy ISPs or whatever. This just really takes the policy and matches it to something that fits reality. If we need the IPs, we should get them. If we don't need them, we shouldn't get them. It's quite simple. Until we're out of IPs, then hopefully everybody will realize that V6 is important and will actually turn it on their content, and we won't just see like 3 sites making up 95% of our V6 traffic towards our end users.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thanks.
that comment in support, as you said. Go ahead, sir.
Christoph Blecker, Disney Interactive. I am in strong support of this policy. I think lowering, especially for end users, the requirement down to a 24, well, there's an extreme benefit there to get IPs out the door and get them in use.
Thank you very much for that statement of support. Other people who would like to make a comment or even just come up and say they're in support or not? Remote participants, I see the shaking the head, so. We'll give one last chance. Again, this is a recommended draft policy, so we will be taking a poll to get see whether or not this room feels there's support to move this forward to last call. Okay, we'll close the mics now. Last chance for remote participant. Okay, so with my poller,
Thank you.
hardworking in place, I will ask the same question styles I did last time. First, for those in favor of moving it as written to last call, and then asking for a show of hands of those who are against. So first, so those on remote participation, please indicate your vote now. And for those in the room, all those in favor, please raise one of your 2 hands as tall as you can. Please leave it up. Hats also count. Try and add a little humor. Just please leave them up until the counter gives me an indication that they have the count. Is that okay? You can lower them. Those that are opposed to this policy move forward, please raise your hand or hat at this time. All right, thank you very much. One moment while we get the tabulation. I have had a cup of coffee since the last time, so I think I will be able to read the sheet correctly this time, but you know, you never know with me. And the envelope, please. Thank you, Leslie. Yes, they left no ambiguity this time. They only gave me 2 numbers. Well, they gave me that. So on the matter of 2014-13, those in favor, 16. Those opposed, 0. Total people in the room and remote, 49. Again, 16 in favor and 0 against. This input is being instantly provided to the AC for their consideration. That concludes our last recommended draft policy. We'll move on to the draft policy section.
Thank you, everyone. Okay. So, next up is draft policy 2014-1, out of region use. And I will ask the shepherd to come up and present.
Okay, we're going to make this quick. The problem statement for this policy is that the current policy neither clearly forbids nor clearly permits out-of-region use of ARIN registered resources. We've had a number of previous attempts to limit out-of-region use, and those have failed. We're working now on a option to clearly permit them. But in doing so, there are a number of issues that have to be addressed in policy and operational practice, and we are attempting to address those. The policy statement creates a new section, out-of-region use. ARIN registered resources may be used outside the ARIN service region, et cetera, et cetera. There's a definition here. This definition was modified since the Atlanta PPC to take out the billing address, which was one of the criteria that was suggested by the community that would be a problem. So that's been handled. Additional language was added to not duplicate resources with other RIRs, and restricting utilization rate to ARIN registered resources. So you can't use how many resources you're using in the RIPE region per se to demonstrate what you should be getting for a block. There are a number of policy sections to this. They're summarized here. I'll give you a moment to look through them. I'm not going to read them to you. And then, so the discussion, there hasn't been much work on this since ARIN 33. There's just been a lot of things, and this one hasn't bubbled up to the top. We're going to work on that. There's been general support for the concept. The AC plans to continue its work on this, and the general direction is simplify and shorten. And if you have suggestions, we'd love to hear them. And I think that's it.
So just a reminder this is a draft policy, not a recommended draft policy. So as opposed to the ones that, correct, Einar? Thank you. You had that look for a second that if Einar says it's wrong, it's wrong. This policy is not as far in the policy process, so we're looking for more initial feedback. We will not be taking necessarily a poll at the end, so I urge you to come up and give your comments on whether it's sound policy from your standpoint and seems to be addressing a problem you'd like solved. So, yeah, it is. It is tracking. If you turn to your thing, you can see the lovely diagram. It's up here and it's making its way down. But with that, I will open the microphones. First speaker.
Scott Librand, ARIN AC, and one of the people who's taken a hatchet to this text in an attempt to simplify and hasn't quite gotten to where we want to be yet. I'd like some feedback as a member of the AC from the community on whether you think that this is something important to do long-term post-run out. So a lot of the previous discussion around this has been for V4. We're specifically not moving this forward in time for V4 run out. It really is going to be something that matters, that applies mostly after IPv4 is exhausted. So the question, I think, for the community is it useful when everyone is getting IPv6 addresses for them to be able to get them from a single RAR and use them everywhere? And what policy language do we need around that? And possibly it might also matter if you can get addresses via ARIN on the transfer market and use those anywhere. So if the community has general support of that, I think that's what we've heard before. It'd be useful to make sure that's still the case. So if you don't support that, I'd like to hear that especially. And then if you have any specific suggestions around the text and what we should do with it, you can provide that now or later. But that's kind of where we're headed, and I think it's useful for the community to make sure that we're still on the right track there.
Preferably, we'd love the feedback now. We're here, you're here. Let's go for it. Remote participant, first of the day.
Yes, remote participation. This is from Anthony Dela Cruz of CenturyLink. Are there other ramifications/penalty for being in violation of X.3, moral network or ASN than listed, other than in X.1 that you wouldn't be able to use towards justification? Would ARIN be going after folks in violation to reclaim/revoke?
John, I think, was his best answer.
Sorry,
this one.
Richard, I want you to read that one more time.
Nice and slowly.
Yeah.
This is from Anthony Dela Cruz of
Yeah.
CenturyLink.
Yeah.
Are there any other ramifications/penalty from being in violation of X.3, then in parentheses, more network or ASN than listed, other than in X.1 then you wouldn't be able to use towards justification? Would ARIN be going after folks in violation to reclaim/revoke?
So just give John a second on that.
Okay, so it's actually a very good question. The most important thing to remember is that NRPM Section 12, okay, is fairly broad, and it can be applied in many circumstances completely independent of this policy. So if indeed we had someone who we thought, as a result of them coming in for address resources, had in the past fraudulently obtained address resources, it's possible we could do a resource review on blocks that were not assigned under this out-of-region use policy. So the answer is, there's no limitation per se on what we can do a resource review on per NRPM 12 if we believe there's been fraudulent activity. Otherwise, no, the section as written is pretty clear, and we wouldn't be triggering a resource review based on incidental use. It makes it plain that such occurs routinely. So I think I answered the question, but if that's not the
I was gonna
case,
say, yeah, Richard, if you could ask the gentleman if that answers his question and let us know. Next speaker.
Hi, David Huberman from Microsoft. Scott, in response to your request for comments, I think it's important the AC work on this in a post-exhaustion world. I think a few things. With V4 exhausted globally, with AS numbers being basically infinite, with IPv6 being basically infinite, we're not dealing with scarce resources anymore. So now it's just housekeeping, administration, and an IP address is an IP address, and a network is a network, and we want to connect one to the other when the other needs it, right? So I don't see the value in regional internet registries with respect to, especially IPv4, I guess is what you're sort of asking about, right? And where we're going to use it, or where we're going to take, if we get an AS number from ARIN, where we're going to use it, where we're going to route it from, or announce it from. It doesn't have a whole lot of value to me to restrict, oh, you have to get it from ARIN because you're using it in Chicago. Oh, no, you have to get it from JPNIC because you're using it in Tokyo. The network doesn't care. The equipment doesn't care. I speak English and I live in Virginia. Let me come to ARIN. I speak Japanese and I live in Tokyo. Let me go to JPNIC. So with V4 out, yeah, you have a waiting list for new resources that come available as people don't pay their bills or as companies go out of business, and whoever's in line gets it. And I don't care if they're in China or if they're in New York. It's a network, it needs IP addresses. So I think it's important, I think it's good. I think it's a good evolution of the registry.
David, but as to the policy here, great comments, but I had a hard time if you thought this is in the right direction or the wrong direction.
I think it's a great direction.
Okay.
Let's get rid of regional any concept of regional restrictions of use, because I think in 2014 and beyond they're irrelevant. It's administrative.
Okay.
Let me deal with the registry I want to deal with, because an ASN is an ASN.
Thank you.
I think ARIN ASNs, I've heard anecdotally, taste a little better, but yes, probably an ASN is an ASN.
No, just move on. Move on. No good can come from that exchange. Next speaker. Follow that one up.
Mike Joseph, Google. We generally support this policy. I do point out that, in fact, the policy correctly identifies that this addresses only the utilization of addresses and where they may be used, not which entities are eligible to request resources at all from ARIN, which I think is a perfectly fine distinction to make, and I think it is, in fact, one of the things that previously was conflated in earlier attempts to address this, this issue. I do point out that while this policy does clarify what is out of region versus in region use, it seems reasonable that that might be done for billing or verification purposes, but I would have strong concerns if that were ever done to examine utilization differently for the same reasons that we opposed all previous policies that considered utilization differently. In other words, an entity, as David said, an entity that is using addresses globally ought to view that global utilization in a global context and not have to figure out 20%, 30% here versus 70% there, and figure out how that qualifies them for address space. Admittedly, this policy doesn't seem to do that, so that's good. But it does add definition. So I want to clarify for my colleagues that let's not use that as an opportunity or an invitation to add additional qualifying criteria down the road. Specifically, on the incidental use, I think that could go either way. There is some risk in just ignoring small prefixes and other RARs, but I'm not sure that it's a huge concern. But it may be something that we want to consider, whether it makes sense to keep in X3 or not. Finally, in the initial part of section X, there is some wordsmithing that's needed. In the middle paragraph, particularly the second sentence of the middle paragraph is rather unclear and also grammatically incorrect. So it would be nice for that to be reworked. And then the third paragraph would seem to conflict with the second paragraph, although I don't think it does.
X, sorry? The third and second of it?
Yes, the third paragraph,
Thank
only
you.
the utilization rate of ARIN registered resources or immediate need may be used to determine a valid request size. But then the previous paragraph talks about how ARIN will examine utilization for other RARs. I believe I get the intent, but I think it's sufficiently unclear that that needs to be addressed as well. Overall, however, I think this is good work, and I support this policy.
Thank you for that. Is there any questions from you, or? Thank you. That's some great feedback. Dave may be in touch by email soon as well to get some clarification, but that was great. Last call on comments. Seeing no remote participation. If you wish to speak, please start moving somehow towards a microphone now. Once, twice, Kevin, 3 times. Sold. Thank you very much for the input on this draft policy. We'll move on to the next one. Thank you.
Very good. Okay. Next up is draft policy 2014-3, which is the remove 8.2, 8.3, and 8.4 minimum IPv4 block size requirements. And I'll invite John Springer to come on up.
So I'm channeling Owen DeLong and Bill Dart, neither of whom could be here today, to present 2014-3 for you to remove the minimum IPv4 block size requirements on sections 8.2, 8.3, and 8.4. All 3 of these sections deal explicitly with transfers, and they make the minimum block size allowed at 24. In a post-exhaustion world, policy should allow and enable networks to move blocks around as they see fit without arbitrary regulation of a minimum size. Policy statement is remove the offending bits. And a little background, generally in the discussion on the PPML, the opposition is a little heavier than the support on this. But there was a lot of feedback made to the shepherds in Chicago that kind of counterbalanced that a little bit. So one of the shepherds is tending towards maybe wanting to abandon this, and yet we still need to get some input from the community about what your intentions are. So we've got a couple of questions here to help us think about this. If you feel that the current language in the NRPM is appropriate and limiting transfers to 24, then we should stop working on this. If you do not think that is correct, if an organization should be allowed to transfer blocks down into the towards the 32, then we need to continue working on this. And there's a lot of potential discussion about the math on this. So if anybody has any ideas about a nibble boundary, or whether you like the idea of transferring 32s, let's hear it. Oops.
Thank you, John. So as John alluded, and the understanding is that the AC is leaning towards abandonment on this policy. So we're here at the operator forum, obviously, to hear feedback. So we urge you, it's a nice, short, sweet problem statement and policy statement. If you think this is a good idea,
All right,
please
so
stand forward and center microphone.
David, you went from Microsoft, and I proposed the policy. And the reason
So are
I
you opposed or proposed?
I proposed
I-
the policy, and therefore I support it. The reason I put this in here is 'cause trying to think ahead. We're operators here, right? What do you peer with over an exchange fabric? Do you peer with a 24? No, you peer with a 32. When you anycast a couple of machines. Why are you anycasting a 24? You only need a couple of IP addresses. We have this. When I was looking at the transfer policies and trying to make sure that we're set up for success in 8.3 and 8.4 transfers for the coming years, I noticed we have this 24 minimum, and it's totally arbitrary. And so we had a discussion on the mailing list about, well, what's the technical motivation behind this? What is the technical reason why having a minimum of a 24 is a good thing? What is the virtue? And there was no answer to that. There's a lot of discussion about the AC should abandon it, but there's nothing about the technical merits of why it's good. Those who were in support of it, and there weren't a whole lot who spoke up, agreed. There's no reason not to be able to transfer a 32 if you want to buy and transfer a 32, because that's what you need on your network. The same rules from 15 years ago when I started in this industry are true today. People will route what you pay them to route. That's how it works. So 24 in ARIN, which has no stake in the routing space, makes no sense to me. I just don't want it there, if only out of principle. Just my opinion.
Dave, don't run away, please. Dave, just a second. Thank you for that statement. John wanted a question.
So, bear in mind that I'm only channeling the shepherd, so just as a procedural matter, for a draft policy where we have it in this stage of the proposal, you have 3 tests to meet. It needs to enable fair and impartial number policy, it needs to be technically sound, and it needs to have the support of the community.
Mm-hmm.
You may have 2 of those, but not the 3rd.
Sure.
So,
Understood.
You know, your arguments about technical soundness are well taken. You just need to drum up some more support.
Yes.
Thank you. Perhaps some support coming right now to the mic, or not. We'll find out. One of you has to approach. There we go. Thanks.
Mike Joseph, Google. I strongly oppose this policy. In particular, to address David's recent comment, in fact, routability has such an important part in ARIN's work. We recently added it to the NRPM and clarified that when we incorporated a number of principles out of 2050, particularly section 1.3 says that the principle of routability guarantees that internet number resources are managed in such a manner that they may be routed on the internet in a scalable manner. So I think that, in fact, considering routability when revising the NRPM is paramount. I think that if we allow arbitrary transfers of any prefix length, we will see /32s being sold one by one and the routing table completely explode.
So your opposition is fundamental, or is there anything that could be done that would gain your support?
Removing this would gain my support. So no, my opposition is fundamental.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask
Oh,
my direct question?
wait, another question?
So, note the section of principles that you cited in the NRPM regarding routability. ARIN should not adopt policy that can't be technically made to work, that forces parties to do things that would break routing, for example. But as noted by the prior speaker, because everyone has freedom to decide what they accept and what they peer with, it's not clear that removing the minimum causes a problem if you believe that individual operators can decide exactly what they're going to accept or not going to accept, regardless of what gets transferred. So I see the section you cite, but I want to say I would recognize if ARIN was issuing blocks to parties on a /30. Here's your 4 addresses, congratulations. The community may have a problem because people would have an expectation that those ARIN issued blocks were routable. That would definitely be a case where we'd all be staring at the is ARIN creating a situation that's not routable. But when operators are doing it on their own and then have to find the way to route the result, it's not clear that that's a technical problem, because there are circumstances, as noted, when someone may want to have a /30 routed, a peering connection, for example, or a, something small. So I guess all I'm saying is that we added routing in there to make sure ARIN didn't force breakage on operators. I don't know whether or not, as it's written, it means operators can't decide that themselves for issuance and transfers that they do on their own.
John, was there, you had promised him a question, though.
Well, actually, I'd like to respond to John's comments, if I may, please.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
7 sentences back.
So first off, I did highlight 1.3 for the reasons you said, but also for an additional reason, which was to clarify that ARIN does in fact consider some operational impacts, such as routing, when adopting policy. So the tendency of some folks here to argue that we ought not consider any operational impact when contemplating policy is to me a bit of a red herring. To your specific points, while it's certainly true, and I wouldn't suggest that we adopt a policy that would preclude an ISP from assigning a /28 to their customer and then allowing them to route it however they wish, I would argue that this does in fact, this isn't quite analogous to the situation you described of ARIN allocating smaller than 24s. By allowing the transfer to proceed, ARIN's registry would reflect a smaller prefix, and therefore it would look as if to the world that the entities acquiring those other prefixes would have the expectation of routability. So I don't see this as any different, and in particularly post-exhaustion, ARIN for V4 will be administering almost solely a transfer market and not its own free pool. So to me, those two are not distinguishable, and I continue to oppose this policy. Thank you.
Thank you. One sentence? I'm counting.
Thank you for that response. It's also true to the outside world. They do things like build filter lists based on ARIN's information. And so yes, they would build filter lists that have, if a transfer was a /30, they build a filter list recognizing that the minimum allocation was /30 potentially. So you're correct. To many people, they would respond to this as if it was an ARIN allocation, even if it was a transfer. So thank you for the point.
Long sentence. Next speaker.
Kevin Bloomberg, The Wire, ARIN AC. I generally do not support this proposal.
Could you speak up a bit? Sorry.
Sorry. I have two issues. One is a technical and one is a business issue. From a technical point of view, I am concerned that by going all the way to /32, well, you can use your newfound powers with the anti-hijack, throw 1 million /28s onto the routing table and see how far that goes, and how many people complain about that. I think we're going from one extreme, or we're going too far towards an extreme. I would look at lowering it over time. I would look at having the operator community come back to us, but going to /32 scares the living bejesus out of me.
So you could support the policy if it was a slower...
I could support it with a lot of feedback over time from the operator community, but the second part of it, which is my bigger concern, is I use, and I know many companies use, the NRPM and what ARIN's policies are in how we do our assignments to our customers, how space is used with them. I don't need a customer going to a court and asking for their /32 from me for their web hosting website, and that court agreeing with it, not understanding the ramifications of pulling out 32s from my space that, for whatever reason that may be. We have policy. The courts can do what they want, but if our policy shows single IPs are allowed, we are giving justification for that, and I am very concerned about that in a post-run-out environment.
Okay, John would just like to follow up. Oh, Kevin?
So Kevin, so there was a slide there that posed kind of two questions. These two questions. Where do you fall? I couldn't detect from your statement where you fall in the spectrum, because it sounded like you were willing to work down towards?
I believe at this
lower
time,
range?
it's appropriate to abandon. I would not support this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Martin Hannigan, Akamai Technologies. I just want to poke a fork in this. Yeah, what everyone else said, I'm opposed. But I actually, I appreciate David's sentiment. From my own perspective, I think ARIN should get out of our business and let us operate our networks. Thank you.
So that's supportive? No?
I said I was opposed.
Opposed, sorry. Okay. Remote participant.
Yes, this is a remote comment from Kevin Ott from Flying Penguin Technologies. I concur with the abandonment of the policy. We don't need to let the IPv4 address space fragment into an administrative nightmare.
Okay. Last call before we take a, I believe the AC chair would like a poll of those that are in favor of abandonment. Yes. So if nobody's going to speak, once, twice, three times, I'll ask my esteemed pollster. No hanging chads in this election, please. So the question, it's a little trick, it'll be backwards, so listen carefully. I'll first ask for those that are in favor of abandonment, a little bit of a double negative, and then those opposed to abandonment, e.g. that the AC would continue to work on this. So those on the remote, please signal now, and those in the room that are in favor of the AC moving towards abandonment of this policy, please raise your hand nice and high. It's true, they were in a... Okay, you can lower them. Those up that are opposed to abandonment, please raise your hand now. Could you please keep your hand raised? That was the hanging chat of votes there in the back. Okay, wait. It wouldn't be the first time. The envelope, please. Thank you. Thank you again for making it, not giving me more numbers than I need to read. On the matter of 2014-3, those in favor of abandonment, 22. Against, 1. Those in the room and remote, 49. Thank you for this feedback.
Okay. We are going to take a break shortly, but I think we have time for one more policy. So we're going to cover draft policy 2014-6, remove NRPM section 7.1. So I'll ask Scott Libran to come up.
Okay, so section 7.1 of the NRPM and the corresponding section 656 both prescribe operational practice for managing the inedr.arpa and IP6.arpa zones. The author of this draft policy asserts that that shouldn't be in the NRPM as it's operational practice and not number policy. Therefore, we propose to remove section 7.1 and 656 in their entirety. Some history, the original proposal actually just suggested removing 7.1. Previous discussions highlighted that 656 does essentially the same thing. So for consistency, the proposal was updated to include both of those. 7.1 is IPv4, 656 is IPv6. So the discussion questions for you as the community center around whether we should have operational practice like this documented in the NRPM. Many types of operational practice are not documented in NRPM. Reverse DNS delegation is. Is that because that there's a meaningful reason that we need to have it there or not? And then if you think it shouldn't be documented there, then the question becomes, should we remove it entirely and not have it documented anywhere officially by ARIN in any community maintained documents? Or do we need to document it somewhere else first? One of the types of feedback that was received in Chicago was that we should have an operational practices document, and it should be put there before we remove it. Or should we just leave it in the NRPM? It's not doing any harm, doesn't do any good to remove it, and abandon this. Those are the three options as I see them, and I would be interested to hear feedback from the community on those. So unless anybody has any specific questions around the text, I won't bring those slides up.
So again, a draft policy, we're looking for feedback on fairly straightforward, discussion points. I see some mic approaching occurring. Go ahead.
Support this, Mike Joseph, Google. I support this policy and the removal of the outdated section 7.1 text. It's quite clear that the text in 7.1, in addition to only dealing with IPv4, also contains, also strangely deals with /16s inconsistently from other prefix sizes and other historical artifacts. So I support removal of this section. Certainly one could envision rewriting this, but at this point it just doesn't seem worth it.
Do you have any view on the second point of should it be anywhere else, or?
I would say that it's out of scope for this forum.
Just, it was feedback solicited. Yeah, absolutely.
If I could follow up on that earlier question. Get the right distance to the mic. Some people say I'm too far back, some say it's too close. We'll try this. It's the maintaining of inatter.APA by operators is an operational issue, and it's not clear it's even an ARIN operational issue. But there is, I see in NANOG, a healthy BCOP process now spinning up. Would that be suitable for where a best practice was documented for something like this, as opposed to within ARIN?
One might envision that, but in the context of the ARIN public policy process, I would suggest that it's out of scope. Thank you. So I support this policy.
Thank you.
Kevin Bloomberg, The Wire, RNAC. I'm generally in support of this. Only one clarification. If by removing section 7.1, is ARIN obligated to continue providing in-address ARPA to ISPs and end users?
Colin?
Excellent question. So one of the things we've been looking at ARIN is trying to get a better description of what services people get from ARIN, and because it's not as clear as one might expect. You can derive it backwards by looking at the NRPM and the RSA, but even that is only, it's kind of like squinting one eye and trying to guess it. We actually need a services document that describes what services we provide, both to parties under contract and legacy holders not under contract. And so, yes, we're going to work on that. We will provide in-adder services and make that clear that that's part of the registration services we provide. That's part of an update to trying to do one more push to get a clear description of services to parties, both under contract and legacy holders, that we want to do within ARIN. So I want to get the services part done within ARIN no matter what. Our role in providing in-adder APA, that shouldn't necessarily be what an operator's obligations or best practices are in making use of that.
Okay.
So based on that, I would say that from a timeline point of view, this removal should coincide with ARIN codifying separately that service. Thank you.
Thank you for that support. I'd ask at this point if you could move to a mic if you'd like to speak on this proposal, as we'd like to close the mics shortly. John, did you have a quick interjection? No?
I was just going to say, I'm faster than the AC, so that will be the case. Yes.
Oh, you're in a spicy mood today.
You wrote the PDP.
He had a bad flight here, so he's taking out his next microphone.
Martin Hennigan, Akamai Technologies. I support this policy. It's always great to poke a fork in the other side of the roast. Let's not overthink this, though. Let's just get rid of it. It's already largely ignored. Thank you.
Thank you. Support. Got it. Last comment.
David Human, Microsoft, author of the policy. I oppose it. I support it. Hey, Mark, can I put you on the spot for a sec? Come on up.
Come on down, Mark.
So this is one of the few things we do in the RAR world which is top down. The RARs, as the administrators of their various inatter.arpa and IP6.arpa zones, decide, as a matter of operational practice in combination with the DNS community, how they're going to provide, how ARIN's going to provide inatter.arpa and IP6.arpa. Everybody else has to conform to that for the DNS to work. So, quick question. Do the 5 RARs in v4 all delegate /24 reverse zones until you hit the /16 boundary, then delegate /16 zones until you hit the /8 boundary, and then bump it up to the next level? Is that consistent in all 5 RARs?
That's correct.
For IPv6, do all 5 RARs delegate on the nibble boundary, the /24, /28, /32, and then that's like it, right? Is that consistent?
Yes, for the most part, except for the /23s.
23s, which is a special.
Mark, could you approach the microphone a bit,
yeah,
just for our remote,
So this is probably accident of history, but Aaron's first sort of initial allocations from IANA dealing with V6 were on /23s. So that doesn't seem like a nibble boundary to me. Anyways, we're dealing with that sin of the past, but that's one of the few cases where things are not on a nibble boundary.
So the point, thank you very much, Mark. And the point of all that, I don't know how to say this without sounding weird, but I'll just say it. It's kind of, this is an RFC to me. Mm-hmm. It should have been an RFC a long time ago. Mark and you and some of your colleagues at the other RARs really are world-class experts at this, having worked in this for 10, 15 years in this space. So this is really something that you really should put an RFC together and put it there, nip it in the bud, get it through the ITF, and make it, because it really is a protocol.
Thank you, Dave.
Understood.
And thank you, Mark,
Thank
for
you, Mark.
playing our game. We have some lovely parting gifts for you. I did say that technically Dave was last, but I think a remote participant snuck in there. So
Snuck in right before you said that.
all right, so
So
under the wire.
this comment is from Kevin Ott of Flying Penguin Technologies. He is in support. As long as a reverse zone is delegated, what the registrant does with it is their issue. Operational practice already dictates if you don't have good RDNS, you'll have problems. Still, they'll want it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, we'll close off. Should I just send them to coffee, or did you?
I can do that.
Okay. John is going to come up and send you all the coffee now.
Oh, okay, so we are nicely on schedule. We're going to take a break for 30 minutes. We're going to come back. We have 6 or 7 more policy proposals and draft policies to go through. So we're going to break from 11 o'clock. We'll be back at 11:30. That's both in the room and remote participants. Thank you. We'll see you in 30 minutes.